All guests appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. John McMullen. We'll talk some football. Eagles rookies report it today. We will dive into that. But first, before we get there, John used to cover the NBA. Have you ever covered a Game 7 in the NBA, John?
Yeah, a few Game 7s along the way. Game 7 with Sixers and the Celtics.
Sixers-Celtics
I covered
Game
that
7.
one.
That was 2012.
Yeah. That was the last one for this team. But, there's a lot of Game 7s in the NBA. There always is.
Yeah, no, I didn't know when you covered the NBA if you ever been part of like a memorable or like one of those, great games. Like there's a lot of Game 7s. Sometimes they kind of get thrown by the wayside because they gobble people up and spit them out sometimes.
Yeah, they do. It's really difficult, and that's one of the things. The league is what it is, and if you're the home team in Game 7, the statistics are pretty glaring in your favor. And hey, the whistles are going to go your way. It's just the nature of the league, and that's kind of the uphill battle the Sixers will be fighting, and it's a significant one.
Yeah, and that's I said if anything, they got to Game 7. Even if they lose this game, you can at least now put that on your mantle of some sort of experience gained in these playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think it's huge for Joel and Ben particularly. I mean, Game 7s, you got to go through it to understand it. So win or lose, it's a positive. You do hope. I certainly would hope that the Sixers are in the game. You don't want it like Game 5 where you're just completely blown off the floor. But if they're in it in the fourth quarter, I think win or lose, that's tremendous, tremendous experience.
Yeah.
People are going to be disappointed with a loss, especially if you're in it. But I think it helps either way. Obviously, you prefer to win.
What takes will be
important.
What takes will be more irrational? Losing a Game 7 or losing by 36 in Game 5?
I think Game 5 was pretty irrational. I think it depends what happens in the Game 7. I mean, just the nature of losing in that win or go home environment is going to create a lot of angst no matter what. But anytime you get beat like they got beat in Game 5, the sky is falling. They're the worst players in the world. Get rid of them. You're going to hear all that kind of stuff. You heard all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you just don't have it. That was the worst playoff loss in Sixers history, dating back to the Julius Erving Sixers. And that team got waxed in Boston, and they were good. And they were really good. And sometimes you just don't have it.
They lost by 40 that game in 82.
Yeah. And that team obviously was tremendous. So it happens to even the best teams on occasion. But in the moment, people get heated about it.
Sure they do. And then they go to Twitter at Mike Gill Show.
Well, that's the difference between 1982 and 2019. There was no Twitter. So the angst was there, but it wasn't as pronounced. Yeah, I mean, from Twitter, Mike, and I get Twitter people as well, it changes from moment to moment sometimes in the midst of a game where people are just, I don't want to call it what you want. It's certainly not schizophrenia, but you go from one extreme to the other in a matter of the same game. And you'll probably see that in Game 7.
Well, we'll see it Sunday night right here on 97.3 ESPN. While that was all going on last night, the Eagles rookies were in bed, getting a good night's sleep and ready for their first taste of being a professional. And we are at a rookie mini camp. And let's take a look at some of this. Carson Wentz's involvement so far, and that kind of set Doug right off.
Yeah, Doug was – talk about schizophrenia. Doug was all hyped up, smiling. Go Sixers at the beginning of his press conference, and then came the Carson Wentz question. And he turned into Prickly Doug. And it was kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and he tried to deflect it towards the fact that this is the time for the rookies and the veterans can't participate anyway. But he wouldn't address whether Carson would be on the field May 21st, which is when all on-field OTAs for the veterans begin. I don't think he needs to be out there. I think I wouldn't be all that concerned if they don't put him out there over an abundance of caution. On the other hand, if he's healthy, he'll probably be out there if he's completely healthy. I just don't think it's a big deal at this time of the year. If we're talking mini camp and he's not out there, then I would start putting up some concern and say something's going on here. But I think being cautious is probably a good approach to take with any veteran player at this time of year.
Now, would you say that Wentz is kind of becoming somewhat of a Joel Embiid here, where it always seemingly is something they can't give us a straight answer, nothing too specific? He's still getting there. I mean, Embiid, who's the face of that franchise, he takes a lot of shots because of his the lack of transparency that comes from having him. Is Wentz starting to go down that road where they don't give a lot of info? He's got this mysterious injury. Nobody knows what it is, when he's going to be ready to go. It's something that they told us wasn't all that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think at times, much like the Sixers, I think that's a good comparison. They are their own worst enemies, and I'm talking about the Eagles organization. Same with the Sixers organization, because they haven't been completely above board about injuries. They haven't given out information that has turned out to be true at times. And that makes people question what the heck is going on. And then you create other issues. And last year with the Eagles, for example, had a lot of soft tissue injuries. And look, you can go on the Eagles website. You can look at their medical team. It's a pretty impressive group from a resume standpoint. They can handle a hamstring injury. They know what to do. They know how to rehab it properly. However, once you do other things and once you're very clandestine about information, people start questioning you, and even when they shouldn't. And I think that has happened to both of these teams in this city because of the way they've handled information. And I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't think it helps the organization. I don't think it helps the Sixers or the Eagles by being closed-mouthed about these types of things. But for whatever reason, both of the organizations have decided to go down that road. I wish I could tell you why. I can't. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, the back and forth that he had with Dave Zangaro from NBC, when OTA start in less than 2 weeks, will he be on the field? How does it pertain to rookie minicamp? Well, it's all about Carson, right? No, it's about the rookies that are here this weekend. So you would say if he's going to be on the field, not right now, not until we get to that point. I mean, he was short and it was back and forth, and it seemed like, hey, I'm not talking about Carson right now because this is all about the rookies. But it's apparent that, yeah, these rookies are here, but Carson Wentz is the Joel Embiid, man.
Yeah, he's the face of the franchise. You got to know the questions are coming. It certainly shouldn't have been a surprise to Doug.
Right,
at
exactly.
This stage of the game. And he could have handled it. You could have done the same thing. Look, I understand what he's trying to say, and I get it. This is their time, the rookies. And the microscope should be on them, and the spotlight should be on them, and this is their time. Well, you could have said either or. You could have just handled it as, you know what, Carson is still to be determined whether he'll still be on the field on May 21st. And right now I prefer to talk about the rookies and explain it's their moment, and that's what this is about. I think you handle it that way, you get this exact same thing accomplished, and you don't come across like you're trying to hide something.
Right. I mean, that's where sometimes like the other night, I was just having this conversation with my girlfriend this morning about how Embiid was sick, but they didn't say something till after the game. Now, in that situation, do you think that they should have come out in front and said, look, he's sick. He told us, like when Brett met the media beforehand, At that moment, should he have said he's sick or waited to say something afterwards after Embiid played like crap?
No, well, you don't want to alert the opponent.
Well, that's what I tried to explain to her, that there's some gamesmanship there that goes on that you don't want to let the opponent know. But in that situation, I almost think that saying that he was sick might have been a better move to tell the opponent, he might not play. Now that area of doubt kind of creeps in.
Well, and that's just, sort of a preference for gamesmanship.
But in this situation, there's no gamesmanship here. There's no opponent.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the difference. I have no problem, and I had no problem last year with Doug in season trying to keep it alive for the gamesmanship part of it. I think that should be taken into account, and that's a legitimate way to go about it. This time of year, there is no gamesmanship. There's no reason to do it. Sixers have done it in the past with Joel and leg injuries in the off season.
Right.
And that to me is completely different. When you're talking about somebody being sick, look, you see with Siakam when he was doubtful. I don't know anybody who thought he wasn't going to play. You play in the playoffs if you can. And if you say somebody's sick, well, the majority of NBA players are going to play. They're going to play through it, and it's certainly superstar players. So I don't think there's any value of it from that standpoint. Toronto's not going to say, Joel's not going to play. He's sick. We're not going to prepare for him. They're going to prepare for him anyway. So, I don't think that's valuable. And as I said, from Brett's standpoint, you probably don't want to alert the Raptors that he's on his deathbed or whatever was going on with him. So I don't have a problem. I have a problem with the way the Sixers organization has done business on the medical side dating back to the name I do not speak of, and I think it's incorrect way of doing business.
The fact right now is there's a lot of guys here who are just kind of running around taking up time. There's about 4 guys who probably will make the team, right? Is there guys out here that, Doug said it today, you're not competing for this team, but also 31 other teams. But here's something that I brought up earlier today, which was you never know when you're going to need one of these guys in a game. Like Avonte Maddox was a guy that got drafted last year, and you thought he would have virtually very little impact or role in the season. Well, it turns out he had a very big impact and role in the season, and other guys like him that we see out on the field right now.
Yeah, I mean, once you get down to 53, understand you have the bloated 90-man off-season roster now. But once you get down to 53, everybody's important. And Jim Schwartz talks about it all the time. Eventually, you're going to be needed. There's just so many injuries in this league. It might be 1 week. It might be 4 weeks. It might be 6 weeks. It might be the whole season. It's pretty evident that, look, this second straight year, this organization has not had a deep draft class from just a number standpoint. There's only 5 guys. All 5 of those guys are making this team. And then you start talking about the undrafted class, which turned out to be 11. And perhaps 1 or 2, history says, will make that 53-man roster. We'll see how that shakes out. And then the tryout guys, you had 29 tryout guys. Look, those are probably not going to make the team, to be kind. Maybe 1 or 2 makes the 90-man roster, and they cut somebody to make room because they want to send a message. If you work your butt off this week and you deserve it, you can have a job for the summer. And that sends a message to the entire locker room.
These guys get paid?
Competitive.
These guys get paid?
Yeah. They get paid. It not their NFL contract, but yeah, if you're here, you get a stipend for that work. And it just sends a good message. There's a competitive balance, and you talk the first guy everybody's going to point to is Adam Thielen. He was a tryout guy. Wasn't even an undrafted free agent. Got into a rookie camp on a tryout deal, made the Vikings, turned into an all-pro receiver. It's very rare that it happens, but it does happen.
Quarterback, you had the young kid in there. Let's start with him. You see him for the first time, and he's a guy that has a lot to show. He's got something on the line starting today, right? I got to make this team, and I have a shot to potentially battle for the backup spot if I really open their eyes right now. So, what did you see from Thorson?
Well, I understand at rookie camp, only he and Luis Perez, the quarterback they signed from the AAF, they were the only two quarterbacks here. So he's sort of the first-string quarterback for minicamp. But I don't think the Eagles look at it as a possibility that he's going to push Nate Sudfeld. I think there's a clear delineation here. Carson Wentz is the starter, Nate's the backup, and Clayton will be the third-string quarterback, barring any unforeseen injuries or things of that nature. And I think that's what I asked Doug today about other players as well. The Eagles are a good team right now, and they have kind of a luxury to get these rookies and ramp them up in a slow period. Other teams don't have that luxury, and they have to get rookies ready. But guys, even up to the first-round pick, Andre Dillard, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Sharif Miller, these guys are not going to play, and Clayton's in that category. But they are going to be on this team, and they're going to be groomed for roles down the line.
Yeah. One guy, too, is Mailata in this camp? He's not here, right?
No, he's not. The only veteran of any note who was on the practice squad, and that's why he was eligible to participate, is Joe Osman, who we've talked about a lot because Howie Roseman talks about him a lot. And Doug Peterson talks about him a lot, and Mike Groh talks about him, Jim Swartz. So because he was on the practice squad, he was not on the team.
Right.
He was eligible. There's a couple other first-year guys. But anybody who was on the 53-man roster, they're not eligible.
What about so Dillard? He was asked about whether or not he's going to cross-train at guard, or is he just going to focus on tackle?
Yeah, and that's just tackle right now. Generally, all backups have to do cross-training, and they have to be versatile. And that's not just here in Philadelphia. That's across the entire NFL. If you're going to be a backup offensive lineman, you have to be able to play multiple positions. But as Doug said, Andre's a little bit different. He's a first-round pick. He is a top-tier talent. He's going to be the left tackle of this team, hopefully, for the next decade once Jason Peters is gone. And that's what they're concerned about, making sure that he's ready to go to be the left tackle in 2020. And that's what everything is gearing towards.
Then, of course, there's Miles Sanders, who I see at JF McMullen that you had a chance to talk with today. And as asked, they have a big impact rookies. And, I don't know if you've seen running backs over the years in these things, but did you see that Sanders had more emphasis than other, like Josh Adams had a year ago when doing stuff in this portion?
Well, the Eagles have turned into the CIA, so we were only allowed to watch the opening 20 minutes of practice. Years ago, we could watch the entire off season, every single practice from rookie camp through mini camp. It is no longer like that. So basically, we just get to look at individual drills. So you don't know who's getting more attention from the coaching staff, but it's logical. I mean, this is rookie camp. As I mentioned, you have 5 drafted guys. You have 11 undrafted guys. You have 29 tryout players and a couple first-year players like Joe Osman mixed in. So they're paying a lot of attention to Dillard, Arcega-Whiteside, Sanders, Sharif, and Clayton Thorson. Those are the guys that are getting a heck of a lot of attention.
Yeah, and Arcega-Whiteside, he was the guy that, a lot of people compared him to Alshon Jeffrey, and I guess he has heard that noise.
Yeah, well, they're very similar just from a body standpoint and from the way he was used at Stanford as a back shoulder sort of player, and that Stanford had a ton of success doing it. So the comparisons are natural, but I think the hope is that JJ, not now, but ultimately down the line, can be a little bit more than that because he's faster than Alshon. He actually ran a 4.49 at his pro day. So he was faster than most people thought he was. And I think there's assumption because he's so big and so rangy that he's not the fastest guy in the world. So he acknowledges the comparisons, and he's grateful for the comparisons because Alshon's a very good player. But he doesn't like necessarily being pigeonholed as just a back shoulder guy, just a guy who's going to be a red zone threat, just a guy who can make contested catches. He thinks he's got the ability to be a well-rounded receiver. We'll see how that works out.
John McMullen at JF McMullen. Check his Twitter feed for interviews from some of today's rookies, including Miles Sanders, J.J. Whiteside, and Arcega Whiteside, and some others that he got a chance to catch up with in the locker room today. Any colorful personalities? I see you with Miles Sanders. Looks like he's got the nose piercing there.
Yeah, I got Andrew Sendejo's not here yet, but he's got the Makes Football Violent Again hat in his locker, so he's not walking back from that. Alex Singleton, who is a CFL All-Star, pretty interesting guy. Maybe he'll have an ability to catch on as a special teams player, backup linebacker. And then, it's always interesting. Joe Osman, as I mentioned, was there. A lot of people. Joe's already the all-season star, and Howie Roseman kind of created him. So there were a ton of reporters around Joe Osman.
Yeah, and I saw you tweet out that Arcega Whiteside was somebody he was taking some punt returns too. Is that just because there's not a lot of guys here, or is that an area where they think he could do?
No, I think in this time of year, everybody, a lot of people were taking punts today. A lot of the receivers, DeAndre Tompkins, who's a undrafted free agent from Penn State, was taking a lot of them. A couple of the running backs, a couple of the corners. So a lot of people rotate, and they just want to see who can do it. Today was an interesting day because it was pretty windy down here. So it wasn't the easiest day to be catching punts. So I think it was a good day for the guys to look at the young players and see who can secure it. That's the number one thing for being a punt returner in this league. Doesn't matter if you're explosive if you can't catch it.
Right.
And JJ was pretty good catching it. I'm not sure that he'll be relevant, though, once the veterans get here because the Eagles have a lot of options at punt returner. And Deshaun Jackson's back.
That's right. Here's a great story, by the way. We talk a lot about this AAF disaster. Have you seen the story regarding the AAF reportedly paid Marshawn Lynch $5,000 in quarters for an exclusive interview that never aired?
I did see the story. I shook my head at it. I don't know. You and I have talked about that a lot. I have no idea what that league was trying to accomplish.
That was one of the better stories that I've read all day. 20,000 quarters they paid Marshawn Lynch to be a part of an interview that never actually aired. The league's out of money.
I'm surprised they had the money to get it.
I'm sure he got paid. There's been, in the weeks past this that we haven't really even brought up, there's been all these nightmare stories about people that worked in the front offices and for the offices that went out and bought things themselves and all sorts of crazy stuff that is now coming out. Even more than we've already chronicled on the show. All right, Eagles minicamp continues through the weekend. We'll have more on Monday at JF McMullen all weekend long right here on the Sports Bash. Football at 4, another one in the books. Thanks, pal.
All right, and like Doug said, go Sixers.
All right, Sunday night, go Sixers, he says. We'll have it for you live on 97.3 ESPN.